Hey, welcome to this week's episode. I'm Paula Williams.
And I'm John Williams.
And we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is
to help all you ladies and gents out there in the aviation industry sell more of your products and services.
Absolutely. So last year we introduced a workshop, the Strategic Marketing and Sales Planning workshop, because we go through this with a lot of our clients every year, and we thought it would be simpler and easier if we made it into something that's a little bit more modular and repeatable and incorporated all the best practices that we learn every single year with every single client, right?
Exactly.
So every year it gets better, and we also make it available for people who are not clients, just because we think that it is better for the industry. Of course, they have to pay for it because it includes some books and consulting.
We're giving stuff away.
No. We never give stuff away. We give stuff away. We give tip sheets and things like that. But this is a workshop that we put some serious work into. So we do charge a fee for it, but we do offer it to people who are not in our marketing lab.
Wow.
Just as a single standalone and so on, so that they can kind of get a feel for some of the things that we offer. And also, anybody doing better in the aviation industry is actually better for everyone. Because the better you do, the better we do, the better the whole industry does.
Yeah, it floats all boats.
Exactly. All right.
Or airplanes.
Right. Altitude is a wonderful thing. So this is basically introducing our Strategic Marketing and Sales Planning workshop for 2022. We are going to offer in the next probably 20 minutes or so, a few tips and tricks and things that you probably want to incorporate, whether or not you want to do the full workshop. But we're also going to be kind of taking a little field trip into the workshop and talking about some of those things that are in it. Yep. So when we talk about strategic planning, what often happens with companies that are in the business of providing a product or service is that they are in the business of providing a product or service all day, every day, and they don't really have the time or the energy to plan and to say, what's going to be different this year? What do we want to have different this year? What are some of the big rocks or the big items that we want to get out of the way and make sure that we don't treat as recurring emergencies, right?
Well, it occurs to me that some of the small to medium-sized companies may not do this. Mm-hmm. I know from experience that larger companies in corporate America do this because I've been involved in it several times.
Right. In fact, a lot of the companies that we've been involved with, like Wells Fargo and Pearson's, and I know some of the companies that you've been involved with as well, take the entire senior leadership off-site for a week in January and just do this. This is what they do, is they put together a strategic plan for the year. They do that in either December or January, depending on how proactive they happen to be, and do the planning for the year and also for next year and the year following, and their 5-year plan and their 10-year plan and their 50-year plan and their 100-year plan if they're Japanese, right?
Well, they go up to 500, but yes.
Right. Okay. So those are the things that we're going to talk about today. What are some of the big rocks you should be considering in your actual or theoretical off-site retreat with all your senior leadership, which may just be you, depending on the size of your company. And maybe what you need to do is just take an afternoon and rent an office somewhere away from your usual haunts and plan some of this stuff out, because it is definitely worth it. And if you don't plan, really bad things happen.
Well, my first company was growing like gangbusters until it wasn't, because I hadn't planned this stuff out. Mm-hmm. So it failed. I had to go back and get a job.
Oh, that's terrible.
Well, I learned.
Right, and it's a fate worse than whatever. We want to make sure that nobody has to actually, especially a founder of a company, has to go get a real job, right?
Yeah, that was more than 25 years ago. So
cool.
I learned.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is one of my favorite quotes from Dwight Eisenhower. In preparing for battle, I was always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable.
Yes. Still true today.
Absolutely. So, a lot of times we'll do the plan, and, I hate it when people spend time on a plan and then just throw it in a drawer and don't look at it again. I do think you do need to make an attempt to follow the plan, but be flexible with where it goes.
What
right?
you've got to do, you can't stop with the plan and say, I've got it for next year. Mm-hmm. What you got to do then is go back and say, okay, if A doesn't happen, what am I going to do? Mm-hmm. So what you're doing is you're planning, you got the plan A done. Now what happens with B? Because the minute you execute plan A, something's going to be different. You hadn't known about something you didn't know you didn't know. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be different, and you need to have a plan B to take up the slack and just keep right on rolling.
Absolutely.
And then C and D, depending on how convoluted things can get, depending on your part of the industry.
Right. So I was one of the people who was lucky enough to see Stephen Covey do this exercise in person at a workshop, where he was talking about strategic planning and time management and those kinds of things. And it's been done ever since then with any number of different materials by any number of different professors in any number of different fields and lecturers and other people. But what he did is he took a equal volume of sand, rocks, and gravel and 2 mason jars. So the first mason jar, he just kind of threw everything in. He put the sand in first and then threw the gravel in and then the little rocks and then the big rocks on top. The second mason jar, he packed a lot more carefully, and he put the big rocks in first, and then the smaller rocks, and then the smallest rocks, and then very carefully shook the sand in among the cracks. And you can see that, an equal volume of material fit into a smaller space. It's like that when you're doing your planning. There are some big rocks, there's some big campaigns, there are some big shows, there are some big events in your marketing that you want to make sure that you get taken care of. So you want to get those in the jar first, right, before you start piling sand on it, because otherwise you end up with a year full of sand and no idea what happened, because, all of these small things took up all the space and took up all the time, and you didn't have time to do any of the big ideas that you were so fond of and that would have made a huge difference to your profitability.
Exactly.
All right. So one of our big rocks that we really like to do is a Valentines Day campaign. We like to do a referral campaign for Valentine's Day. It involves a mailed box with candy and some printed materials and other things like that. And so it does take some money, and it takes some time, and it takes some energy. And if we just kind of cruise through January without thinking about this, Valentine's Day would be upon us and we'd have nothing done, right?
Well, but it presupposes that you have a list of more than one person.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we've got a list.
But you didn't say it. You didn't discuss that yet.
Okay.
And I just want people to know.
Okay, Campaign 101. Every campaign, and if you've been listening to our podcast for a while, you know exactly what I'm going to say next. Every campaign has 3 elements: a list, an offer, and a presentation. Mm. So your list is, in this case, would be people that we've done business with over the past several years, or people who have given us referrals and things like that. So the offer basically is, we want to thank you for the referrals that you've given us, and also remind you that we appreciate in some tangible form the referrals that you're going to give us in the future. And the presentation for that is a mailed box. It usually has candy in it. We haven't decided exactly what we're going to do this year yet, but it will be some kind of a physical thing that's going to come across their desk that they have to open, and it's going to have candy in it. That's the only thing we know for sure, right?
You say so.
Okay. And we love doing this at Valentine's Day because it's a really good time to set up our business for the year, get referrals. Also, it's cooler in the United States, so we can mail chocolate without worrying about it. There's a lot of really good reasons to do a Valentine's Day campaign for us. And for you, it might be something different. There's some campaign that you do every year that's really successful, and you want to make sure you get it in on the calendar. Start looking for how you want to put that together. Start looking at the catalogs for some of those novelties. Start checking things out. Start planning early for some of those things. And you may have one thing a quarter, one thing a month, a couple things during the year.
And the reason to plan early is to limit expenses.
Exactly.
And the later it is, the more the stuff costs and the more it costs to ship it.
Right.
And particularly these days, you need as far out planning as you can get.
Right. So we're probably actually going to be mailing our Valentine's Day campaign on like February 1st.
Well, but we'll have the stuff already acquired.
Mm-hmm. Long before that.
Yeah, hopefully not later than next month.
Right, exactly. Other big rocks are trade shows. So next year's Hella Expo is
Dallas, I think.
Yeah, and they want you to do the early bird registration by January 14th. So, some of those shows, you end up spending a whole lot less, especially if you're exhibiting, if you book early.
Yes.
And, make sure that you're getting your booth graphics on time so you don't have to pay express shipping or expediting fees or anything else. So trade shows, the two that we typically go to are HAI, the Hella Expo, and NBAA, the Business Aviation Convention, which will be in Orlando this year in October.
And even if you're not exhibiting, travel expenses can be reduced with respect to hotels, cars, and airfares if you do them. And you can do them up to 6 months in advance.
Right, that's true. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret about Orlando in October, and that is that we are starting our early planning for a Disney workshop. Since we're in Orlando, the obvious thing and the obvious people who are doing a really good job of marketing is Disney. So we're planning on doing a workshop with Vance Morris, who is a 10-year Disney veteran and also in several of the marketing groups that we belong to, and a really, really cool guy who can give us some behind-the-scenes examples of some of the things that they do at Disney and some things that we can do as well to make our businesses better. So that's something that we're planning early, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So as you plan these things out, we like to do multiple media. We talked about our list, our offer, and our presentation. Our presentation is often more than one thing. So like if we're going to Hella Expo, or if we're doing something that's happening in a particular month, we'll have a timeline like this where we'll say, one day we'll send direct mail packages, then we'll do a blog post about that topic, then we'll do a social media campaign, and then we'll start making phone calls. And the reason is because I hate doing cold phone calls. I want them to be as warm as humanly possible. I want to make sure that people have had every possible opportunity to know what I'm talking about before I try to explain it on the phone, right? So if we're doing a campaign, then, sending them a package in the mail, they've opened something, they've seen it, they've seen a blog post, maybe they've seen some comments on the blog post, they've seen a social media campaign. Then when I call them, they are not surprised. I don't have to start from scratch and tell them what I'm calling about and everything else. They're just like, oh yes, I've seen what you're talking about. Let's talk about whether that will work for me. And that's the only thing we have to talk about, is whether or not that will work for this particular prospect, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, failing to plan.
And Dwight D. Eisenhower said it's planning to fail.
Exactly. And if you are looking at this or if you're listening to this on one of our audio formats, what we have on the screen right now is a picture of some poor dude on a bicycle that's front wheel just went into a hole, and he's going over the handlebars and sailing away. So knowing what some of the hazards are and knowing what some of the things that have happened in the past to you or to other people in your marketing group, as an example, or other people in your field, is a really great way to avoid some of those pitfalls and avoid going over your handlebars in an unceremonious manner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the way that we do that is we've put together this workshop, and it's got 3 books with it. One is our social media guide for aviation professionals. The second is our 12-month digital marketing planner by Brandon Brashears. We used this last year. And the third is one that's new this year, and that is a 2022 specific social media planner and guide by Laura McDonald. And the new one, or the 2022 one, has all of the current specs and data and basically best practices for all of the social media that are current. So all of the current best practice sizes and shapes of posts and statistics and everything else. So somebody else already did that. We didn't have to put that together for you. We just send you Laura's book. And Brendan's also really, really good because it's got a lot of different worksheets for different digital marketing campaigns and things that we can work on together. So all of those things are actually very, very helpful, and you will probably enjoy those. We also put together several Google Sheets and Excel sheets. They're kind of interchangeable nowadays. You can import and export from Google Sheets to Excel and vice versa. John's not a fan because something always gets slightly askew in your formatting.
Yep, I'll take care of the Excel stuff.
Okay. So we have some marketing budgets and basically campaign planners and other types of worksheets. Some things where you can plan your expenses so you can track as you go through a campaign. How much did I spend on advertising? How much did I spend on materials? How much did I spend on postage? And then how many sales did I make from that campaign? Because often your sales don't happen until 8 months later.
Sounds like a lot of work, but it's mostly just tracking, but it's absolutely necessary.
Absolutely. So the things that we find that people need as they're going through life as a sales or marketing executive in the aviation industry are tools, skills, and networking. If you have the right tools, it makes your job a heck of a lot easier, just like any other, fixing airplanes or whatever. Marketing is just exactly the same. There are some tools that I just would have a really hard time living without, and those include Canva, Lead Feeder, a lot of different things like that. In this workshop, we're providing some tools for campaign planning and, managing some of those things. Skills are things that you can learn. It's so much easier after you've done it once. We always say, or in the medical field, what they do is they say, watch one, do one, teach one.
Teach one, yep.
Yeah. So, and actually one of my flight instructors was exactly the same way. He'd say, okay, we're going to do 60-degree turns. So watch me do this and watch what happens with the gauges. Watch what I'm doing with the controls. You've seen it in the book. You know all the basics. So you watch it once and then you do it once and then you teach him how you do it, and he's all screwing it up deliberately and you're trying to straighten out what he's doing wrong. So, and that was actually incredibly helpful, the watch one, do one, teach one method of learning things. And that's kind of how we do our workshops, is so that, we're able to help one another correct some of the issues and prevent some problems and prevent some headaches and do things well. Okay, so let's take a field trip into the course itself. So we get into the course from our aviation sales training page, and you can see here we've got an outline on the side with all of the lessons. Each of the lessons has a video, and I've got it sped up here so that we can just kind of zoom through some of this. We talk about how to use the course, how to customize your profile, some basic preliminaries, and then we dive right into the material. We'll also need your postal address because we're going to be sending you those books. So we're asking that we keep this to U.S. only for the time being. So as we proceed through the lessons, you can see there are some Google Sheets. These are some templates that have some of the best practices that we've captured from working with clients over the years. And those Google Sheets are a great way to capture that information and share it with us if you want to, or not if you don't want to. So you control the privacy of any of those worksheets. And, of course, they are your property. You don't have to share your plans or your budget with anyone else in class, but you're welcome to if you'd like some feedback on any of those things. Other things that we do, your weekly metrics. Here are some things that you could be measuring on a weekly basis to make sure that your ad spend is being kept track of, and that it results in the types of sales that you are wanting. And the only way to do that is to track it. And the only way to track it is to make it super easy to do that. We all have way too much to do to get lost in software and other things. So if you're finding that your Salesforce or your HubSpot or your CRM or whatever isn't working for you, it could be that you're just not asking the right questions, and you need to work with something simpler to get the right questions asked and the right questions answered. And then you can always make it easier with your software once you know for sure how to calculate your return on investment, how to calculate your return on ad spend, and those types of things. And we do a weekly and monthly model and those kinds of things. So that makes it a whole lot easier to communicate with your team and your boss and everyone else when you're asking for more money for advertising. It's so much easier to do that if you've got the data to support that decision. We also have some daily habits, things that you can set up that you want your sales team to be doing, even if your sales team is just you. How many calls should you be making? Should you be creating content? Should you be posting? Should you be responding to comments? What are the kinds of things that you want your salespeople to be doing? What kind of content should you be creating? A lot of people don't know. What are some of the things that I can write about in order to make my product or service more appealing to the folks in the aviation industry? We use the planning books that we sent you, and we show you how we use them. And we make some recommendations on how you can use them in ways that are really relevant to the aviation industry. So it's nice to be able to keep track of these things on paper sometimes because digits are so ephemeral. We also keep track of keywords and hashtags that are really important. It takes just a few minutes to write these down. Of course, there are always digital tools, but I always like to back things up with paper when we can. If it's something that's really, really important, it's great to have it measured in more than one way. And also some of us are just paper thinkers, so it's easier for us to do it that way. There are some things like landing page worksheets, client avatar worksheets, other things like that. And we show you how we filled them out and give some examples of how you might as well in the industry. And we also have those budget worksheets that you can use as well. One of the things in this workshop that we're really proud of is 3 ways to reduce expenses. And, sometimes it's necessary to reduce expenses. Of course, our favorite way is just to make more money so that we can spend more. But sometimes we have to tighten our belt and things. So we do talk about ways to reduce expenses, things that can go wrong, and all of those other things like that dude falling off the bike. Everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face is what Mike Tyson likes to say. And then at the end of the workshop, we have an hour of consultation time that you can schedule whenever you choose. It looks like when I did this demo, there were no times left in November, which is true. But of course, you'll be taking this in January, so we'll have some times available on the calendar for you to schedule at your convenience. And we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear any of the questions or problems that you've had when you started setting up your strategy and budget and other worksheets and things like that. So we want to make sure that it works for you, and that's why we spend that time with you at the end. Welcome back. Glad you made it.
Oh, okay.
And so now you've seen what's in the workshop, and you can decide whether or not that's a good fit for you. Another option, of course, is to join our marketing lab, which is our community of aviation sales and marketing professionals. If you've done the workshop and you've enjoyed it, then you probably would be a really good fit for our marketing lab. If you did the workshop and didn't enjoy it or didn't find it relevant, then it's possible that the marketing lab is not for you. It is certainly not for everybody.
No, but it's for those that do get into it, they like it a lot.
Exactly. Okay, well, thanks for joining us. I hope you have a fantastic 2022. I think we have all earned a uneventful and fabulous year.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. We'll see you next week.
Stay healthy and happy.